Hello and welcome to the Turn by Turn podcast. Today, and in general, this season, something I noticed that in season one that we didn't really do was we didn't talk about more recent games. Like the newest game that we talked about in season one was like probably around 10 years old. So we are in the future now. And today, as you saw in the title, we are talking about Monster Hunter Rise, which is an ARPG that came out around 2019. Is that about right?
Yeah, that sounds right.
So Chris is with me as always. Chris, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. I love Monster Hunter.
Awesome. So this was actually my first Monster Hunter game. So this was seemed like a pretty decent introduction. Like I didn't feel like I had missed like a ton of different games. So I felt like I started and I didn't feel lost like I have with some other games where I haven't started on like the very first game. So I appreciated that it was welcoming in that sense, whereas some games aren't. Um, I get the sense this probably isn't your first Monster Hunter game.
It is not to give people the rundown. I played Monster Hunter Freedom Unite, Freedom 2, Try, which was my first. Try was my first. Then I did 3 Ultimate, 4 Ultimate, and now Rise.
So, were you mostly playing on PlayStation? Because it's more of a PlayStation game, right?
It was PSP, a lot of PSP. The thing that got me into it was they put Try on the Wii, and I had a Wii, and I was like, oh, I like, you know, really, I'll be totally honest. The thing that got me into it was the amazing ad campaign for Monster Hunter 3, which in North America they had this heavily Scottish guy, I mean, very thick Scottish accent that would go out into it was almost like a YouTube prank series. And he would just take over locations and be a Monster Hunter guy. And so, like, he would take over like a fast food restaurant, and people would come up and be like, I want a hamburger. And he'd be like, I've been hunting Rathalos. And they're like, I don't know what that is. And he's like, I've got ribs. And it would be like these giant slabs of meat and stuff. Like, I thought it was hysterical when I was like 10.
Is that what the McRib is?
I don't know. But he would just be in these different locations, and he would dress up like the Monster Hunter, and it still, I think, is pretty funny if you go look those up on YouTube. But I was like, man, this seems fun. Like, I gotta check this game out. And so I ended up buying Monster Hunter Try, and I remember I bought a Pro controller just for Monster Hunter. That was the first one I bought. And I had a great time with it. Like, it was super difficult. There was a big learning curve because no one I knew had ever played Monster Hunter. So there was nobody to show me the ropes, but I eventually figured it out, and here I am.
So, in the grander scheme of the games, how does Rise kind of compare?
Good. I mean, to me, Monster Hunter is a game series that has always been kind of the same thing. Like, if even if you go back to the original Monster Hunter 1 on the PS2, it still is going to look very, very similar, and the controls have not even changed. Which I think is really cool. That, like, if you're using the Great Sword in Monster Hunter Rise, if you go back to the PS2 and you play Monster Hunter 1 from 2004, it is going to control the exact same. The Great Sword is going to play the exact same. So all of your skills will transfer over. And even though the controller doesn't look the same, the buttons, like the place that the buttons are in, those all still do the same thing.
So, does it sort of feel like it's gotten more RPG over time, where they've added in like weapon crafting and like supply shopping and things?
Nope, that's always been a thing. It really is like pretty unchanged from the first one. They've refined certain things, and I like for this game that they have a lot of things set up that are kind of quality of life things. Like, you auto craft potions and things when you have the materials. That was definitely nice. The pickaxe was not an item that you carry; it just exists for you. The fishing rod is not an item you carry; it just exists. I really liked those quality of life things.
So as far as the plot of this game goes, I assume, like you were saying, everything's pretty similar. So the plot is sort of your B or C element of the game. So like there is a story, and it's perhaps almost an outline of a story where you are a new monster hunter, and your job is to protect the world or your city town from monsters, and that's sort of your plot. And then um, not too much in the way of narrative swings, I didn't think. It was that sort of your impression too?
My impression and my impression from a large chunk of the community is two women in the town that are twins that people think are hot. There's an old man that tells you to kill monsters, and that's it. And that about sums it up for this one, but all of the minus those twins, that's about my experience with all the other Monster Hunter stories as well. And this one is decidedly more Japanese in theme.
Yes, that was something, we'll talk more aesthetics and things after the break, but definitely stands out as very, very cool graphically. And we'll definitely get into that some more. But so with the plot being smaller, let's get to some of the gameplay of it all. So basically, you make weapons and go kill things is sort of the 2 second summary that I have in my head.
My summary would be you take a weapon, go kill things, make weapons and armor out of that things so you can kill more of things.
So it really does have that like RPG soul. Like it's obviously not turn based, but it has that like go have adventures and make new stuff out of those adventures, and then get to the point where you can craft the super weapon that helps you kill the super boss.
Yeah. And I like too that I've always felt like Monster Hunter was very much kind of an RPG in disguise with all the item management and crafting, but also leveling up in that you level up yourself instead of your character. You are the one that's getting better.
Mm.
Because I like that it doesn't gate off anything from you. If you want to go kill giant monsters, you can pretty quick, even with your crappy gear. And if you can do it, you can do it. And it doesn't gate off any of the attacks from you. You can do every single swing or motion with your sword or your axe or your hammer or what have you from the very get go. You just get better yourself in learning how to use those.
Hmm. So, what was your go-to weapon then? Where did you like the big swords, the axes? Like, what was your slaying choice weapon?
My main choice, if I get to play with other people, is usually the bow. And that's kind of a newer thing I tried for Rise because I haven't successfully used that before. But with Rise, it was going really well. But my normal weapon is the great sword. And the reason that is because in Try, I started with the switch axe, which was new to Try. So I was really excited. I'd never seen a weapon like that before. But I ended up getting to the Barryoth, which is like this super fast Arctic bat jaguar thing. And I really needed the ability to block because I wasn't good enough to dodge out of the way of his attacks. But the greatsword had a block. So I remember doing a ton of grinding to eventually make a good greatsword to use against him, and then blocking saved me. And after that, I just ended up switching to the greatsword, and I don't even have to block that often anymore. But I like the greatsword a lot.
Hmm. So for me, I liked the double swords. So the shorter swords. It kind of annoys me in games when your sword is like kind of like double the size of your body, and like it slows you down. So you're kind of like plodding along with this like massive sword that like takes such a long time to swing. So I kind of fell into a happy medium with like the double swords where I could kind of keep the speed a little higher, and just sort of when attacking monsters, I could just sort of work my way around because I can swing a lot faster. So like I didn't have to wait like I was doing less damage, but like with the strategy I was using of just sort of pivoting around the monster like in a circle, I was able to defeat most things pretty easy.
Yeah, the double swords can be pretty good, and I ended up playing a lot with my little brother, who also uses the double swords.
Because I had the starting sword, and I was just like swinging so slow that like the swing would go all the way through, the monster would have already moved.
Mm.
So I was like, well, I got to fix this because I always tend to prioritize speed and stuff like this. So
Mhm.
I was like, even if it's like doing less damage, like I'll catch up.
Yeah, and really what weapon you choose is just what works best for you. I mean, there's no correct answer or anything, and I really like that.
Yeah, I really like that too because it can be frustrating when when you have to go with a weapon that's not working for you. You have to do the sword because it's the only one that can beat X
And
monster.
it's vastly different experiences. Like the gameplay is really, really hugely different, and I think that's really cool. And also how complicated things are. Like, I would say the hammer is one of the less complicated weapons, in that you just hit and that's about it. The great sword's also not that complicated, but like there's like a rage mode with the double swords that makes those a little bit more complicated. The bow gun and the bow, you have like all the different ammo types. And then you can get into stuff like the switch axe, that there's two different forms and things. And they had another new weapon in that I'm not sure was new to Rise. It was the charge sword, and it was like a sword and shield that could become an axe. And I had never seen that before. So I tried messing around with that a little bit and immediately was like, I think this is just too much for me to wrap my head around. Like, I'm
Mhm.
going back to my giant sword because this is just too complicated for me. And then I think the peak of complicated is the insect glaive, that you have like all these different insects you also have to be managing. And I don't know, like it looks really cool when you're using it well, because I've played online and seen people doing really well with it. But just holding that thing, I was like, it would be like if you handed that to me in real life, I would be like, what do you want me to do with this? Like, I have no idea.
So, since you mentioned rage mode, that was something I really loved to do with the double swords. So, I'd run into the palamutes, with the palamute, which probably talk more about in a couple minutes, and like kind of launch myself off of that, like land in rage mode, and then like go right to like hacking. So I always thought that was kind of like a cool strategy where you can kind of like get all like riled up and then enter the battle with like some I'm trying to. Maybe it was like a double damage, which double damage with double swords is marginal at best because you're not going in for like hulking hits. You're going for kind of steady, constant damage rather than upfront damage. So the
You're
rage mode I thought was
essentially
really cool.
stabbing a giant monster with a toothpick, so it's gonna take a while no matter what you do.
Regardless of how enraged you are. But let's talk a little about the palamutes because that was something new for this game. And so at the start of the game, you are given a palamute, which is essentially a dog. We were discussing off episode that it's canine, but it's spelt differently. So we're guessing it's still canine. And then the palico, which is a cat that, in my experience, just follows you around and does puns, which I personally loved. So, what did you like having the palamute? Was that like a nice upgrade from the other games?
Yeah, I really liked it. Calicos have been in for a long time, and those have been really popular. So, but I'm definitely more of a dog person than a cat person. So I definitely enjoyed having a dog around, and riding the Palamutes also adds so much speed to the game. And that's something that was a really big departure from the older games. That Monster Hunter Rise is much, much faster. And I know they had some of these things in, not the Palamutes, but I know they had certain things in earlier, like these wire bugs, which is a little bug you can zip out like Spider-Man almost, and then like pull yourself to it with a little silk rope. But it lets you jump and makes the game a lot more vertical. And so that was also a really big thing that I was like, I'm flying around, like I'm using this dog to cross areas really, really quickly. Um, and I'm not used to any of that. Like Daniel, this was your first Monster Hunter, but like, can you imagine that like all of the traversing the environment and stuff, we used to just have to do that on foot. Like you just had to walk.
So were the maps as big as they are in Rise?
I'd say yeah.
Then that would probably annoy me. I probably wouldn't get very far because I'd be like, nope.
They are less vertical. Like I've noticed in Rise, there's a lot more like areas that there's an upper level and a lower level, and I would say that the other games don't have that quite so much.
Entering the maps for the first time, like especially that very first one, and obviously just because it was the first one I've ever been in, um, I thought it took a little time to figure out how to get to the upper elevations. Like it wasn't very intuitive. You had to find like the specific sort of path up, and they were in specific areas rather than being able to get up from multiple spots. So that was something that not difficult, just like, oh, where's the entryway to this? So I remember having to like circle like the whole base of it just to find the little ramp that lets you go up there. So I remember being a little annoyed about that.
Yeah, there were definitely times, especially when I was playing online. I'd play online and like have randoms join me that, I'm hunter rank 5 or something and they're hunter rank like 500. And I love that about the community too, that people that are really high leveled will join you and just to help you out and just to hang out with you for the night. I really appreciated that. And I liked too that they let us type, and it took me a long time to figure that out. But you can just free type with a little like in-game keyboard and talk to people. So I ended up talking to some people and making some friends. But I felt bad that there would be times that they zip right to the monster, and I'm still trying to figure out how to get up there, how to get down there, like especially on that volcano map. Getting into the volcano and out of the volcano, man, that took me forever.
But to go back to the Palamutes, I
Yes.
thought it was super useful. I did feel a little like they must be some very, very powerful animals if they're able to hulk up a dude with like full armor and like that giant sword and stuff. I was like, is this animal cruelty? Like, what's happening? But I got over it pretty quick and had fun riding it around.
Yeah, and I enjoyed too that like it's fun to have like armor customization and weapon customization for them as well.
Yeah, I was just thinking like if I were to go back and do another playthrough like from scratch, I'd sort of just focus on upgrading them and just sort of see like how I could do like just having them be my fighters. Like could I upgrade them to the point where like they could do significant enough damage that I don't even have to wave my sword at all? Like could you get them so boosted that they become your weapons?
I think that was a thing in there actually is a manga for Monster Hunter I've read as well. And I don't know how you say it. It's like Monster Hunter Orage or Orage or something. And it's a really great story that I encourage you guys to go read. I think you have to get fan translations. I don't think it's officially translated into English. It's actually written and illustrated by the guy that did Brave Master and Fairy Tale, which have both been really, really huge in the anime world. So it's a fun little thing that he did his own Monster Hunter story, which of course his art is great, so it looks fantastic. But I think there's a guy in that that uses like hunting dogs or something as like his main form of weapon.
Because I know you can adopt extras. So I was just thinking it'd be so cool to like basically like turn it into a Pokemon game where like you take them out and kind of breed them up and then let them do all the bidding for you.
I
Like I'm
think you
sure there's
can only take one out at a time. I'm not sure.
okay. I think it would be pretty like you'd have to really invest in it to get it to the point where like it's doing enough damage that you can sort of watch the battles happen. But I think it'd be really cool to try, even though I'm sure there's probably limits on like total damage they can deal, and it would not be remotely worth the time. But I think it'd be interesting to try.
Yeah, I think you might be a couple steps ahead of the developers, and maybe that'll come in the future.
Yeah, Monster Hunter Reborn will be that. All right. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in so far. We're going to cut to a break, and we will be right back.
Hey, this is TC.
And this is Jim from the Studio Demands It podcast,
Where every episode we take a demand from a hypothetical studio,
which could be you,
and challenge ourselves to conceptualize, pitch, and craft a film based on the stipulations
or the demands
we are given. We talk about movies all the time. Particularly, we complain about the choices made in the films we've seen.
We're nerds like that.
And, of course, like any good nerd does, we automatically assume that we could do better.
Even with the demands and restrictions that clearly must have been put on by a production.
So head on over to studiodemandsit.com and listen to our previous library of episodes. Our library of previous episodes. Our precious library, Jim. Our library of precious episodes.
You're a pirate, Smeagol.
Okay, so head on over to studiodemandsit.com to listen to our library of episodes.
And submit your demand for a future episode, too.
So go do that.
Okay, bye.
Okay, end of ad.
Hi, I'm Ryan.
And I'm Mike.
And we are brothers-in-law. We both love beer and are amateur home brewers.
Wait, so does that make us brothers-in-law?
I believe so.
Every episode, we will talk about aspects of beer and home brewing.
But nothing super technical because we're learning this too.
So join us as we sit down together and dive into something beer-related.
Whether it's a little field research, tasting a certain beer style, or beers from a specific brewery,
talk about our experiences brewing beer at home, including our own solo brews, as well as themed competitions we'll set up along the way.
We will also talk about some of our favorite aspects of brewing, like hops, extra ingredients, building our brew cave, and more. And of course, our own misadventures that have happened along the way.
So, if you like beer, are home brewing already,
or if you have an interest in home brewing and don't know where to start,
join us on Brothers-in-Law Podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, YouTube, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
And make sure to follow us on Twitter at Brothers-in-Law and check out our website, brothersinlaw.com.
Cheers.
Cheers.
All right, we are back from our break. How about we start off with the town? So, because that's maybe not like a unique element of the series, but it's pretty flushed out town. So you have your different kind of vendors that provide you different things for hunting. Did you find you went in for some of the more like kind of not quite the right word, but like gimmicky stuff? So like, were you stopping to like eat mochi to like boost your stats and stuff, or did you find that you just sort of skipped over a lot of it?
No, I was eating every time because that's also a staple of the series, and like it really does help you so much. Yeah, I made sure to do that every time. After a while, I had presets for all of them that I knew what were, so I could just skip the little cutscene, which is adorable, and do my preset for whatever I'm going in to face.
Mm-hmm. So I found that I did it most of the time too. I didn't really notice that I felt like the things that it said it was boosting, like I didn't feel like I really noticed that too much of a boost, but I did it anyway. Did you feel like it made a difference whether you did it or not?
I know it does, but it's not enough that you feel it. But I think that's because the damage numbers in Monster Hunter are such that you don't usually feel it. Like it's all so small compared to the monster's health. But there were other things I did feel, like I would take things that would help with stamina, or because I was playing with my brother, who's also newer to Monster Hunter. Sometimes I would take the it was a thing that was like, if one of your teammates gets killed, it has like a random chance to not have them be killed and they revive with full health or something. And so I would take that a bunch, or that if you do get knocked out, it'll, instead of coming back with like less health and less stamina, it'll revive you at like full or something.
Mm-hmm.
I was taking things like that.
Yeah, that I do remember using, and that was useful to being able to get back up, because like getting knocked down is like the ultimate kind of like you're stuck. Another thing in the town, like I thought, like you had sort of mentioned earlier, the blacksmithing element didn't feel exhausting. Like it felt like it was pretty easy to like find resources on the map and then bring them back and turn them into weapons. There was too much scarcity of like stuff that you needed. I appreciated that because it didn't feel like, oh, I need this one thing that's like hidden deep inside this mountain of this one map that I missed. So now I have to like figure out a quest to go back to that map. So I appreciated that there was the crafting stuff, but it didn't feel impossible.
I'm glad you felt that way because there totally is that.
Oh, yeah, you think so? I guess I just got lucky then.
Oh yeah, whenever you get up to it, like I think this one was better about it, but it depends how much you gather while you're out as well. But there are definitely times that it's like you need Dragonite ore, and I'm like, oh no, where is that? It's like you can mine it in the root of the volcano, and I'm like, oh no. But yeah, this one definitely I didn't find myself using the gathering quests as much, which for those of you who don't know, that's in a lot of Monster Hunter games. There, you can take a quest that's just like no quest, and it just lets you go to whatever area and gather resources. And I didn't find myself having to use that in this game nearly as much as I have in the past, because there were definitely times in the past that it was like, all right, we're gonna go, gather resources for 3 hours to get ready to play tonight or something like that. That really used to be a thing.
I think that I use those quite a bit just because I was new to the series, so like I didn't really know what to expect because I tried to be ultimately naive, so like I didn't really read anything about it. I just put it in and went with the flow. So the gather things really helped me kind of get used to running around and like riding the Palamute and just the gameplay in general, fighting like the little monsters that don't matter. So I was able to gather up stuff, but I could definitely see like a veteran player being like, "Are you freaking serious?"
I mean, I still liked like all of the changes they've made. I'm not like, "Oh, I miss gathering for 3 hours. Like these normies are ruining the game. Like, and in terms of Monster Hunter, I'm very much like still a normie. Like I don't get to Hunter rank 500 or anything like that. In terms of like the dedicated Monster Hunter people, I am still very much like at the base level. And I'm happy with that. I just like to get in, kill the flagship monster, see the end of the campaign, and then I'm pretty much done. But there's some people that I mean just go and go and go, and I love that Monster Hunter lets you do that. But I'm definitely not like, oh, I miss the grinding for 3 hours. Like the normies don't understand. Like if you want to save me time in that way, that's fine. Like I said about the pickaxe and stuff too, I don't need the pickaxe as an item. It's fine to make it like a contextual thing that pops up that I use in certain instances. Like I like all the simplification because it lets me. I think it lets you focus more on the actual monster hunting, which is what the core of the game is to me. And I'm sure that when you start getting up to the higher levels too, maybe you do have to go gather a lot more. When you're going up against things that are like level 500 or something. Yeah, I'm very grateful for all the simplification and all the quality of life improvements that Rise has to offer.
So another thing that we sort of touched on, but I want to talk a little more about it, was the wire bugs. So is that new for this game?
I don't think so, but it was new to me.
Okay, because that's something I thought was kind of frustrating and a little odd. Because I felt it was strange, like how you used them. I did like with that you could use them to get on top of the monsters and kind of control them. Use
That
them
was
to fight
weird.
the other ones. I thought that was very cool.
That was new to me as well. And I don't think that's totally new, but it was new to me.
Yeah, so the Spider-Man of it all did strike me as very, very weird because it seems like a game that's like not based on reality, but like sort of like follows general rules of um,
Physics.
physics and gravity. So like sending me like flying through the trees, like My character would be dead if it were to do that, but with the wire bugs, it's somehow okay.
Yeah, it's a little bit odd that I appreciate how much effort they put into the monsters to make them feel very alive, and I know that's something they really pride themselves on. That if you just like sit back and watch a monster, like it kind of goes about its day. It'll kill something to eat, it'll sleep, it'll do like whatever it does. They feel very very much alive and very much like it's part of a real environment that you could just sit back and observe. Yeah, and then the contrasting that with swinging through the trees like Spider-Man is definitely a little bit odd.
Based off that one of the first quests in the game is the food supply has been cut off, and you have to go kill a monster that's blocking the road. But it's just like a normal run. Like you go in and it's just sort of hanging out. Like it's not like doing anything particularly malicious. It's just kind of like walking around and like not troubling anybody. So I thought that was pretty funny. But
Yeah, a lot of the quests, like the plot justification for them is kind of funny, but
longtime players like know what they're getting into, and like new players pick it up pretty quick. So it's like you don't really need these like kind of janky like explanations for things. Like we know everyone knows what we're doing here. So
speaking of quests though and things, let's talk about those Horde quests because I think those are new. Did you get to any of those?
I think I did a few of those. So what did you generally you in favor of them?
So for those of you who don't know, it's sort of like it puts you in an arena and you have a bunch of turrets and it's like a tower defense segment. It's real odd because it's like your stats don't really matter in this. You're just using preset turrets to ward off a ridiculous amount of monsters. Um, and I thought it was okay. There were definitely moments that I was like, this is not super polished. Like, I don't totally get what I'm doing with this. Like one of the things like that was that you could get items off the monsters that you're shooting down, but until like the last one, it's not actual pieces for armor and stuff. It's like temporary items that do like nothing. And they don't just do nothing. It's just very very little to the point that I'm like, I don't get why you would even go pick these up. And I was like, I don't feel like that was super well thought through. My little brother had a very different response. He hated those segments, like with a passion. He just did not have fun with that at all and was like, this is not why I'm here. So I didn't feel that strongly. And I thought it was cool a couple times, but I definitely get that some people are not really into that. My favorite one I did was they have like a plot reason where this giant it's the bear, I forget what it's called. I think it's Azeros. But there's like a giant bear and he breaks through all of your lines. And really you're not, if you're competent, you're not struggling that hard on that mission. But then he shows up and like just plot wise like breaks through everything, and so it pushes you back really really far, and like shows you this tower defense map is actually really huge. Did you get to that one, Daniel?
That sounds familiar, but I'm not recalling it at the moment.
Oh, that's fine. It just shows that area is really huge, and that I thought was really cool. That like it was when that mode was kind of starting to get stale a little bit, and I knew what to expect, and then that kind of blew me away, and I was like, oh, this like is way different than what I've been doing. Like I'm having to scramble and figure that out, but I get that Capcom's gonna have to keep innovating with the series and adding new things. So I think that and the wire bugs are both interesting additions, but I wouldn't be terribly upset if both ended up going away at some point.
I think just like we were with the semi-realistic nature of it, like if it was more like a grappling hook to kind of like pull you from like point A to point B a little faster, something like that would work, or like pull you to higher elevations. That would be cool and feel less like Spider-Man-y,
Yeah,
because it maybe something like that would like add to the perhaps more realistic nature of it, but it honestly didn't bother me that much. I just thought it was kind of strange.
yeah. You just kind of want it to be based more in reality.
Yeah, I guess so, since that's the world that we're role playing in.
Yeah, and I get what the wire bugs offer. Like, this is definitely the most vertical Monster Hunter I've played. In that you're having to think more vertically. You're looking at climbing things in the middle of battle. Like, I know when I was using the bow, I would use those wire bugs to get up on top of stuff and then shoot down at the monster, and that was really interesting. So I'd like to see them mechanically stay. It's just
Mhm.
the look of it is a little bit weird.
Sure. So you had mentioned that the game has pretty heavy like Japanese influence as far as like the town goes, and like the wardrobe and things go. That's something that I thought that like pulled me in instantly, like beyond sort of the main gimmick of it of going out and hunting monsters, like walking through the town and seeing like the different like outfits people were wearing and like the different like building designs and like architecture and stuff struck me as really cool. And I know it must have struck you as cool. If anyone's listened to the Spirit of Sonata episode, you'll know Chris is all in on it. So
Yeah, I liked it a lot. I still it's my second favorite town. My favorite is still the town from Monster Hunter Tri, and I don't know if that's just nostalgia or like that's what I started with. But for some reason, I still like that one a little more. And that one's very coastal, very like there's lots of water, there's lots of docks and things. But this one I liked running around through the town. And yeah, like Daniel said, I of course enjoyed seeing what people are wearing, what they're doing around the town. Um, and just a lot of the armor design for your character, I liked a lot. So this is definitely my second favorite town that I've seen.
okay. And what did you sort of think of the music?
The music's really good, but the Monster Hunter music's always pretty good.
hmm So I thought it was good too. For life things, I wasn't able to have the volume on as much as I probably would have liked, but it seemed like it was just sort of your like nice, like kind of what you'd expect for hunter music, sort of like build up the pace sort of music.
Yeah, I think so. Lots of very, very moving things. Very background music-y for while you're fighting giant monsters, but it's definitely really good for that. I have like the main theme playing in my headphones right now to get me into the mood of the episode, and yeah, I'm definitely over here rocking to it.
Yeah, since the plot and the story isn't really the thing, it's not like there's going to be like a huge like orchestral breakdown of the villain's origin story. Like there probably wasn't as much focus on the music. Like it's very good music and like it fits well, but it doesn't probably shift as much as like a narrative driven story would.
Yeah, definitely not.
But again, I don't think that's like a big deal.
No, it's kind of Monster Hunter is one of those things that's like I like deep plots, I like well-written characters and things, and Monster Hunter does not have either of those. And but it's very upfront with that. And if you know what
Mhm.
you're going into, that's totally fine. Like
Yeah.
you're coming in to have fun with friends and hunt monsters, and that's about it. And like that's fun. It's much more about your story than the story. It's the
Yeah.
story that you are currently having with your friends or your party or your hunting partners or whoever you're playing with, even if it's just your Palico and your Palamute. Like the plot of each Monster Hunter game to me is definitely the plot of your character and what you personally decided to do.
Which I think definitely fits in. So, like the theme, as much as like there is like kind of a theme, is like hunting with your friends is sort of the idea, and then they sort of give you your built-in friends, so it kind of works out really well that way. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say I've definitely got stories from Monster Hunter as well that like feel very much like my plot. Like I remember fighting, I forget which monster it was, but I remember fighting in like a volcano at one point, and I didn't have enough damage on my sword to actually win the fight because you are timed. So it was like a 50-minute timer, and I was good enough to survive against this thing for 50 minutes and keep doing damage, but I just could not actually kill it. I got close, but I couldn't actually kill it within the 50-minute timer. And so it kind of reminds me, like, I was definitely feeling like Gandalf fighting the Balrog a little bit. And I really like those kinds of moments that you get to have.
If you've listened to the three Lord of the Rings: The Third Age episode, you needed like another team to help you to do the work behind the scenes,
I did.
and then
I
take all
did.
the credit for it at the end.
But the Monster Hunter community is so nice too that if you're looking, you can find that team to help you.
Yeah, and it seems that some like online communities aren't as inviting, but it seems like the Monster Hunter people are very nice and like kind of adapt noobs a lot more than perhaps other like online gameplay things are.
It feels like the super hardcore Monster Hunter people, when they join a room and see like my brother and I that are level 2 and level 3, they get really excited. They're like, oh yeah, just pick whatever quest you want and we'll go do it, and like I'll help boost you up. Like any quest you want to set, we'll go do it. And there's never a complaint that it's like, oh, this quest is level 3 and I'm level 500. They're just like, no, I'm just here for the ride. Like, and there were sometimes people joined us for hours. Like we played for like 5 hours, and it's like this level 999 joins and just plays with us for the entire evening. And I'm like, that dude is super cool.
So I didn't get to play online. You had nothing but glowing things to say, so maybe if I get a chance, I'll go back and play online with some people.
Yeah, you definitely should. I mean, it was a great experience, and I really like some of the monsters that they get online. Like I don't know too much about Rise because I didn't get to those. The biggest thing I killed was the Magnamolo, which is the flagship monster. But in some of the other ones, like one of my fondest memories of playing on my Wii is actually playing Monster Hunter Tri and hunting what was called the Jin Moran with other people. And the Jin Moran is basically you start the level in a map that you haven't seen before, and it's exclusive to this monster. You're on a boat sailing through the desert. It's like a bunch of sand, and this giant like monster, I mean way bigger than your boat, is like swimming through the sand next to you, and you have to use like turrets and stuff to shoot at it. If it gets close enough to your boat, you have to jump off the boat onto its back to start hitting it. um it's really fun, and then it can like throw you off, and you end up like in the sand, and that somebody on the boat, like an NPC, will shoot a grappling hook to you, and you can hang on, and like the boat's just dragging you behind now, and you got to pull yourself back to the boat to get back on. And then eventually, after you do a bunch of damage, the Jinmaran stops and decides to confront you, and your boat stops, and you kind of have a final stand where it keeps trying to get closer to you, and you've got to use a bunch of turrets and stuff to push it back and use your weapons. Like it's really crazy, but that's one of the coolest. I think that's my favorite hunt I've ever done.
That sounds awesome. So I'll definitely want to revisit that. One thing, and I say this as a retro gamer mostly, from stuck in the Sega SNES worlds of it all. I thought the graphics were like some of the best graphics I've ever seen in my entire life. Like I don't know. Again, I don't play that many modern games. So you might be able to explain this better, but are these like amazing graphics, or is it just because I'm stuck in the past?
No, I thought it was very, very pretty. Like even for Monster Hunters standards, it was really, really good.
Okay, cool. Because I was really in like even beyond the gameplay, I maybe even just had more fun walking around looking at stuff.
Yeah, and I'm a little bit. I'm not stuck totally in that era with you, but I appreciate that era a lot. And I've definitely hit a point in modern gaming, I think, where I'm like, if this is the peak of what graphics are, I'm okay with that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I
Like,
really don't need more than this. This is fantastic.
yeah, it looks like so real.
Yeah, I was very
Because
surprised.
I normally play handheld just for the convenience of it, but I had put it on the TV for a little while to show my girlfriend the dogs. And like it's like absolutely stunning.
Oh, I should include my girlfriend had something to say too. That she saw me playing it, like she was doing something in the background and saw me running around on the Palamute, and she was like, "So what is this game? Like, what are you supposed to be doing?" And I was like, "I ride my dog and I kill monsters." And she's like, "That's it?" I was like, "Yeah, that's it." And she's like, "Oh, you do act your age sometimes. You're not always lost in these giant, super convoluted stories. Sometimes you just like ride dog, kill monster." Like, yeah.
Hmm. And I think this game definitely like scratches that like I just want to like mess around and like kill things or like explore.
Yeah, it definitely can be. It can also be super intense if you want it to be.
Oh yeah.
It depends. If you're getting carried by a level 999, it's pretty turned off your brain. That guy's gonna win the fight for you. But if it's just me and my little brother and we're taking on something huge, then yeah, it's definitely a lot more intense.
So as of recording this episode, there's a DLC on the way, but it hasn't come out yet. So
I don't even know if it's fair to call that a DLC. It seems like it's being advertised as a full-on expansion.
oh really? Okay. Because it's called the Sunbreak Arc, I
Yeah,
believe.
Monster
Yeah.
Hunter Rise Sunbreak. And like when I look at even when I go look at the list of games, which I had up to make sure that I had my whole list of like things I was gonna say, um, it's counted as its own game. Yeah, it says the DLC expansion of Monster Hunter Rise. And this is very similar, I think, to Monster Hunter World, the one that came right before Rise, has Monster Hunter World Iceborne, which was a full-on expansion as well.
Hmm.
So it
So I
seems
think
like it's going to be in that same vein.
okay. So what sort of let's just so we're not talking about it for the next 3 hours because I bet we could. What are like three things you'd like to see added if they're going to go back in and kind of an expansion is obviously more than DLC, but like let's limit it to let's just say they're going to add some DLC things to this current build. Like what would you want to see added? Like three things.
I mean, they say what's being added, so I'll go ahead and read that. They say it'll bring new stories, locales, monsters, hunting actions, and quest ranks. And really, that's two of my things right there. Really, that could be three. It's a sort of campaign with a little bit of new story, as much as that matters. Some more monsters and some more locales. I mean, that's all I need. Beyond
Mhm.
that, if they were going to surprise us, something with the Palamutes, maybe letting, like Daniel was talking about, maybe letting you bring more, and trying to be like a dog tamer, like having that be your thing, and just raising your Palamutes. Maybe letting you join people's games as their felines or Palamutes or Palicos or anything like that. That'd be cool. But I don't know how feasible that is either. But yeah, I think that's what I would add was playing fully as a Palico or Palamute. And you don't have to be considered, I think, a full character. Like if you're doing a hunt that has 4 people or something, I think you could maybe play as somebody's Palamute, and then that would not count as a person. Like you'd still get 4 people as in it 4 hunters, 4 human hunters. But it would be cool to be able to control those things fully and make that feasible. Um, Beyond that, I mean, there's always a new weapon type would be neat, but they have a lot and they have a really good balance. So I don't even know if I want to ask for that. Like they're just doing so well on that already.
Mhm.
Um,
So the
maybe
one thing
maybe a new town too. Like maybe you could travel to a new town and that'd be cool.
mhm. I think that would be cool. Or at least like another setting or two. Like maybe you get that coastal town that
What
you
would
can.
you want added?
So the one thing I can think to be added, and since you know more of the history of the series, would say this isn't possible. But since they've given us a dog and a cat, my next ask would be a bird, like a flyable character.
Um,
So now
in
that
this
they're
game,
adding in,
they did give us a bird. We didn't talk about it.
oh, okay, I wasn't familiar with the bird then.
That's kind of my issue with the bird is that they did give it to you right at the beginning. It's just
Did
that
they?
underwhelming.
Uh,
Like you can use him to like take your picture in the town or something. Like he holds the camera for you. So I'm like, he's really not exciting.
oh, is that what
Um,
that was?
yeah,
Oh,
that's your little bird, and you can even get like skins for him.
yeah, I meant
So
something more integrative into the hunts.
yeah, definitely integrating him a lot more would be really, really good. I was trying to see what he was called.
Because something I really like in Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild is that you get the sailcloth where you can kind of drift it down. Like I think it'd be cool if you could like fly around the map and then sort of like sailcloth down like into the fight, like parachute into the fight. I think that would be a really cool thing to add and like open up some new strategies for battles if you can come top down.
Okay, he's called a Kohoot.
Okay, maybe I do remember this. It just
It's
wasn't what I wanted.
yeah, your hunter's new pet owl. So I'm like, yeah, him and it being more integrated, like I think would do a lot.
Hmm.
Because I had like it wasn't that I was ignoring him either. It was that I totally forgot you even got one of these because it was just such a non thing. Like he just doesn't
Yeah,
really do anything for you.
obviously I did too. So um, I think it would be hard to do it, but I think if they could figure out how to add in like a soaring element or like even just making those like upper elevations more accessible with like a bird, or obviously it could even be like a dragon. It doesn't
Well,
have to be like a pigeon. It can be a
maybe it
pterodactyl,
could be
right?
like maybe that's your answer to the wirebug things in the future. Maybe you have your owl, you increase that wingspan a little bit so it's a little more believable. And then your owl just holds like a little handle or something and you can grab onto it and he can like lift you up and then that's your vertical element.
Yeah, that would be cool because then it wouldn't be so annoying to have to figure out, oh, I have to walk all the way around this mountain to get to the entryway so I can go up. Like it kind
Yeah.
of solves that without the kind of the jankiness of the wire bug.
Hmm. And it might look a little jank too, having like this owl, even with a bigger wingspan, lifting this fully armored guy. But like, it already looks a little weird with your Palamute, like running you vertically up the side of a mountain with you
Yeah.
on his back. So I'm like, there's already a little bit of that suspension of disbelief. I don't think it's too much further to stretch it with an owl lifting you up.
So I think we're getting close to wrapping it up. Did you have anything else you wanted to add?
Um, Not too much. I definitely will come back for. I've already forgotten the name of it. Um, Sunbreak.
Some.
Yes,
Mhm.
I definitely will be back to play Sunbreak, and I'll keep playing this game on and off. It's definitely if you've never played a Monster Hunter, this is definitely a good one to get in on. And like I said, the community is super nice. They'll help you. Um, there's not a lot of chatting either. So if you have like social anxiety or you're like, oh, I don't want to play games with other people because I don't like to have to talk to people. A lot of times people don't even talk. They just pop in and just hang out and you'll take a quest and they'll ready up on that quest. So it's pretty chill. But it's a very, very good one for you to get in on. And I hope Capcom keeps this going because it is, as far as I understand, one of their top selling games. And especially in Japan, the Japanese love Monster Hunter. Like, it is a really big deal when a new Monster Hunter comes out. And if you look at the list of Japanese games versus games that have left Japan, they get so much in terms of Monster Hunter. And it's really cool. So it's also cool to me to play it just to kind of get like just to kind of understand like a game that is really, really popular in another culture. Because for them, like I said, it's a really, really huge deal. And over here, a lot of people still don't even know what that is.
Yeah, so I think I don't have a lot of interest in going back and playing like the previous games because it just at this point sort of feel like things were being taken away. But I definitely have interest to kind of see how they continue releasing these and like what updates come. And this feels like a really massive game as it is. So it's kind of hard to imagine where it does go from here since it's already so huge. All right, well, how about we wrap it there then?
Yeah, there's also that I'll say in closing, Capcom is also starting to really pump out different kinds of Monster Hunter games in terms of spin-offs. We now have Monster Hunter Stories as a spin-off, and there's 2 of those now, and those are much more traditional RPGs. So if you want to hear us review one of those as well, make sure to comment and let us know if that's something you're really interested in, because I would definitely be interested in playing one. And I'm betting that they're going to keep going with these spin-offs and doing more stories, but also some more different spin-offs. So we'll see how those go, and I'll definitely keep my eyes open for that.
So yeah, definitely let us know. You can message us on Twitter at the Turn by Turn Pod. Where else are we? We're on Instagram a little bit at the Turn by Turn Podcast. You can follow us on Apple Podcasts, and if you are really nice, you could leave us a 5-star review there. That would be really, really cool. You can find Chris at Chris_Harkey on Twitter. You can find me at McGarr Mentions to see what I'm mentioning. Anything else for the people?
You can also listen to the show on YouTube, and we're getting some comments over there, and I've been going and responding to every single one. So if you want to go comment on the YouTube, that is also a valid way to reach us. I realized I hadn't mentioned that on the show, and I put my name that like that's who I am responding to it, but like I was like, oh, it could be an imposter or something, so I should mention it on the show that is actually me.
Yeah, the real deal. All right, so thank you everybody for listening, and we will be back next week.